Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Buffalo SportsCenter. I am Don, and today we are going to talk about the anti-small market bias in the NHL and how that could probably and potentially hurt the Buffalo Sabres in a couple of years. But before I get to that, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, join the Discord, and of course subscribe here on the YouTube. But anyways, let's talk a little bit about this small market bias. And you can't really talk about this bias until you talk about the Winnipeg Jets, because currently the Winnipeg Jets are in dire straits. Their season ticket numbers have dropped, their overall attendance has dropped, and this is despite the Jets currently being first in their division at the time of this recording. The Jets have been successful. They have made the playoffs. While they haven't had a lot of playoff success per se, they have made it there, something that other franchises like the Buffalo Sabres can't really say they have done or have accomplished. But let's talk about the Jets here for a second, because for the Jets, this is really concerning. And the NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, he's traveling to Winnipeg to discuss these statistical woes with the Winnipeg Jets owner Mark Chipman. And it's really concerning as a Sabres fan, because you're watching what's happening in Winnipeg, you're looking at their numbers, and then you look at Buffalo's numbers and you say, oh no, this is kind of a serious problem, because these numbers are within the same ballpark of each other. But let's see what the Winnipeg Jets numbers are first before moving on and talk about Buffalo's, because Winnipeg has actually got lower season ticket numbers than the Sabres do. The Jets only have about 9,500 season ticket holders for this season. Their average attendance has dropped to a little under 12,100 people. And their owner came out and publicly said this. Chipman said that this is not going to work for us in the long haul. Can you imagine that the Sabres, their drought is so large that we will not have seen a playoff appearance in the time between the Jets getting resurrected again and the time that the Jets are potentially having to relocate again? It's pretty damning about the Sabres. But again, let's get back to the Jets here and talk about their woes before talking about ours. The Jets are just struggling, and they haven't been able to replicate pre-pandemic levels of both attendance and season ticket numbers. Both of those figures have cratered in the last couple of seasons, and it's not overly surprising if you're looking at this from an economic perspective. Inflation has been bad. Costs of living has been bad. Disposable income is just not there for a lot of families, especially when you're in Canada, where they were probably harder hit economically than we were here in the United States. In Canada, their dollar is weaker as is. So that's one reason why Gary Bettman has never really liked expanding teams into Canada. The dollar is weak, the economy is rougher, their federal government is also not as conducive as the U.S. is towards large businesses being there. So all of those factors, plus the whole stigma around Canada doesn't have a lot of people, has given Gary Bettman this anti-small market kind of bias, especially anti-Canadian bias. So you combine the small market bias plus the anti-Canadian bias, and then you have a really perfect storm, and you have a couple of really easy things for Gary Bettman to do. Right when a Canadian team like the Jets are struggling, Gary Bettman will step in and say, okay, look, these numbers are not good enough. We're going to have to relocate. You guys, the fans have not done enough to really warrant us remaining in operations up here. And that's what he's kind of saying here. And that's what Chipman is also saying, that it's not going to work in the long haul, that these numbers are way too low to operate upon. For Gary Bettman to come out and say that these numbers are concerning and that he's going to have to discuss with the owner about the next steps. These are all really grim and very scary quotes from both men. And it's also very indicative of a larger problem, especially for the Buffalo Sabres, because the Sabres' attendance and season ticket numbers are very, very close to the Winnipeg Jets. The only difference between the Jets and Sabres situations is that the Sabres, they haven't won. We haven't won since 2011, coincidentally, like I said, right when the Jets was finally getting their NHL team back for the second time. So For the Sabres, I guess you could explain away all the issues with, oh, the team just isn't winning. And when the team wins again, then the building gets packed again. And, we've actually kind of seen that a couple times last season during the 2022-23 season. There were more sellouts that season than the last two combined. And this season, in the current season, 2023-24, I think there's only been 2 or 3 sellouts. Opening night, I'm sure the Boston game, and I can't think of another one. Honestly, that's pretty sad if you think about it. But Buffalo's attendance is marginally better. We're 28th in the NHL with averaging about 13,000 people a game. If you look at Winnipeg, they're only averaging 12,000 a game. Now, granted, that little percentage there is how much of the building is actually full. So Winnipeg has a much smaller arena than Buffalo's. That's why, despite them averaging lower numbers of people at a game, their arena is smaller, so that out of the overall pie, it's not as bad. It's 87%. The Sabres are in a 19,000 seat arena and only getting 13, so it's going to look bad in overall percentages. But for the Sabres too, another reason why we may need to be concerned, and we should start having this frank discussion, because the franchise has been struggling. When you don't win, when you consistently lose for as long as a period of time as the Sabres have, then of course the attendance is going to go away. The fans have a right to walk away, not to spend their money hard-earned over the week on just watching the Sabres lose and, spending 80, 90, 100, and 120 bucks in the process on parking, tickets, concessions, all of the fun arena stuff. But if you look at it from a macro perspective, you step back a little bit and look at the statistics from the Sabres over the last 6, 7, 10 years or so, you'll see that the Sabres' attendance has sharply decreased since 2017. We are averaging less than 3,500 people less now than we were in 2017. In 2017, the average figure was around 16 to 17,000. Now it's only 13. So if you see that sharp decline, that's typically not what a profitable business will do. And Gary Bettman has said numerous times that he wants the NHL to grow. He wants to put hockey in places where it can grow. That's why he went to Seattle. That's why he expanded to Vegas. That's why we're seeing brand new cities like Utah, Houston, Kansas City. They are all interested in hockey teams. And we've also seen a big city like Atlanta maybe get a third shot at an NHL franchise. So if you're Buffalo, can you really say that you've been growing the game of hockey over the last half decade? No, you can't. And if you're Buffalo, would you consider yourself to be a small market team? Yes, you would. And if you're Buffalo, wouldn't you say that we are in a sphere of influence of a much larger market? Yes, that would be Toronto. That's that third reason that I mentioned there is the exact reason why the Buffalo Bisons never became a professional MLB team. Toronto was already there. And the MLB deemed that Buffalo was just too close to Toronto, to the Blue Jays, to really warrant having another team. And the same thing goes for Rochester, just down the highway. So if you look at those three big issues, Buffalo's on the losing end of all of those arguments. They're a small market team. The game has not only been not growing, but it's been getting smaller in Buffalo. You've had a whole generation of people that no longer care about the Sabres. And I get it. That the team hasn't been winning. That's what happened in Atlanta, though, the second time Atlanta moved to there, when the Thrashers were still in operation. Atlanta has a lot of potential. They have a rabid fan base. That's what we've all been told. But the team was never successful. And after a lot of losing seasons, Atlanta was finally packed up and relocated to Winnipeg. The same thing could scarily happen to the Buffalo Sabres. And as Sabres fans, and for Sabres ownership, you have to be able to look at that and go, wow, this could get real. If there are teams that have more passionate fan base, well, not more passionate fan bases, but a much more successful team like the Winnipeg Jets, if a more successful team like the Jets are at risk of potentially being relocated for a second time, then Buffalo, who hasn't had that same success over the last decade, almost 12, 13 years, you have to step back and go, oh my, this could get real very soon. If the Sabres can't turn this around, then the franchise may be in trouble. The franchise that we all love may be in trouble. Now, I want to end this video by saying that we shouldn't be necessarily scared just yet. Sabres fans should not be scared just yet. And this is not like a video saying that, hey, Sabres fans, we have really dropped the ball on our end. We got to go back and support the team no matter what, because we did that already. And now the fan base has grown extremely impatient, really apathetic towards the franchise. So it's not our fault that this is happening, that people are starting to connect the dots together about the Buffalo Sabres and relocation. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that the franchise needs to take notice of this. The franchise and the ownership and the executive team, they need to go, oh crap, we really need to get real about our on-ice product and even our arena product. Before we get mad at the fans, before we get all arrogant and sit back and pretend that we're safe from all of this. Because they're not. They're not. Things could easily change. And we have seen teams like the Jets, the Quebec Nordiques, the Hartford Whalers, all passionate fan bases in small markets that have been screwed over because profits weren't there. And with other big cities licking their lips at the potential of getting their own NHL team, teams like Buffalo, Winnipeg, I would even, not Montreal, they're pretty stored, but Ottawa, San Jose, Anaheim, you have to be really concerned if you're the owners or fans of one of those teams, because at any split second, Gary Bettman can come in and say that your attendance hasn't been good enough over a long enough period of time. It's been so bad that I have to step in and we have to discuss the next options on either how to change it or if we have to go even further, make extremely drastic steps such as relocation or just fold the franchise. So the team really needs to figure their stuff out. And this is a big wake-up call to any Sabres fans who thinks that this will go on forever, because the Sabres losing will not. At some point, if the Sabres don't start winning and if they keep losing, then we could see the NHL step in. Because we all know the Sabres fans won't come back to the arena and start engaging until this team wins. But hey, you know what? Winning solves everything. If the Sabres just started winning, we saw it last season, people will go back. People will pay their money to sell out that arena. I was at a couple of those sellouts last year. And let me tell you, when that building is buzzing, it's extremely loud and it's a fun atmosphere. It's crazy. It's like a playoff atmosphere every time it's sold out. But we need to start winning. Otherwise, we could see ourselves ending up like Winnipeg, who are potentially on the chopping block again. But anyways, folks, this was a particularly long rant by me. I hope you guys have some good, constructive thoughts in the comment section down below. I was Don. This is Buffalo SportsCenter. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Discord, and TikTok. Join the Discord. I was Don. Hope to see all of you in the next video. Peace out, everybody. Bye.